From lavish indoor pools to private baseball fields, from waterfront compounds to Spanish-style homes, these are the million-dollar mansions of famous WWE wrestlers. Kicking off our list with John Cena, and honestly, this one is a treat. Cena bought his home in Land O'Lakes, a quiet suburb near Tampa back in 2005. The price tag back then was just $525,000. Today, that same property is worth roughly $4 million. The mansion sits on a gated lot and blends classic colonial styling with modern upgrades. Cena added over the years, but the real showstopper is inside. Cena built an indoor pool designed to look like a cave. You've got rock formations, waterfalls, water slides, and tropical plants all enclosed under glass, so sunlight pours in without letting the Florida humidity wreck the place. It genuinely looks like a theme park water ride built inside someone's living room. Then there's the cigar lounge, which Cena has called his gentleman's room. Leather couches, a chessboard, dim lighting, and specialized ventilation, so the smoke doesn't end up everywhere else in the house. It's less of a man cave and more of a private lounge that most five-star hotels would envy. And because no wrestler's house is complete without somewhere parked serious cars, Cena's garage holds 6 vehicles, including a few from his personal collection of Ferraris and Lamborghinis. Add in a home theater, a game room, and a wine cellar, and you start to understand why this house took nearly 2 decades to fully become what it is today. Cena's mansion isn't flashy from the street. It's the kind of place that hides its best secrets indoors. And speaking of hidden surprises, our next wrestler's home has one that involves water, speed, and a lot of screaming kids. The Undertaker built a reputation on being the scariest man in WWE history. But his home in Austin, Texas, is completely opposite to that dark persona. Mark Calloway, along with his wife Michelle McCool, settled into a home in the Texas Hill Country that feels like a relaxed family retreat. The standout feature here is the backyard pool and specifically the slide attached to it. This isn't some plastic slide you'd find at a big box store. It's a custom sculptural water slide built by a design studio called Splinter Works, cooled with a water system to keep it from turning into a hot metal slide under the brutal Texas sun. Beyond the pool, the home offers sweeping views of the hill country. It's a quieter chapter compared to his earlier Texas ranch near Houston, which had a Gothic mansion with gargoyles and a private pond once rented out by Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. This newer home trades the spooky aesthetic for something a lot more family-friendly. On screen, he was The Undertaker. At home, he's just a dad with a really impressive pool slide. But from one legend settling into family life, we go to a legend who's been building an empire of mansions that most wrestlers can only dream of. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson owns one of the biggest lots in the entire Beverly Hills neighborhood. In April 2021, Johnson paid $27.8 million for a Mediterranean-style mansion in the ultra-exclusive North Beverly Park community. The initial asking price was $30 million, but The Rock negotiated it down because apparently even action movie stars like a good deal. The home has serious history behind it. It was built back in 1993 by Alex Van Halen and later sold to actor Paul Reiser before landing in Johnson's hands. The estate spans 3.67 acres with nearly 18,000 square feet of living space between the main house and a separate 2,500-foot guest house. Inside, there are 6 bedrooms and 11 and 1/2 bathrooms, which is more bathrooms than most people will use in a lifetime. But outside is where things get almost unbelievable. There's a tennis court, which is common enough for a house at this price. But then there's a full-size baseball diamond in the backyard. The Rock has his own personal baseball field just steps from his back door. The driveway alone feels like an event lined with mature olive trees, leading up to a motor court with a stone fountain at the center. And the neighbors match the price tag. Denzel Washington, Sylvester Stallone, and Eddie Murphy all live nearby. For a guy who grew up moving between cheap apartments and motel rooms with his family, this house is proof of exactly how far he's come. However, while The Rock flaunts his lavish mansion, another member of the bloodline has a very different taste when it comes to real estate. Roman Reigns may be the most dominant force in WWE today, but his real estate choices are surprisingly down to earth. Reigns lives in Southwest Ranches, Florida, an area known for wide-open lots, equestrian properties, and serious privacy. His current home costs him $2.4 million, a modest number compared to some of the mansions we've already covered. But the property itself is anything but basic. The house sits at just over 8,100 square feet, with 5 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms spread across a layout. It's built for a big family, which makes sense given how many kids Raines is raising at home. The place is designed around comfort rather than flash, with an open floor plan connecting the kitchen, dining area, and living room so everyone can stay together instead of scattering across different wings of the house. One of the biggest draws is the view. Large windows wrap around the home, letting in natural light, while framing a big backyard pool that becomes a centerpiece of the property. It's the kind of setup built for weekend afternoons with a family, rather than big Hollywood parties. Raines has moved around Florida a few times over the years, previously living in areas like Bloomingdale, before eventually settling into this current estate. But wherever he's lived, one theme stays consistent. Raines keeps his home life low-key and focused on family, which tracks with everything he said about being a father first and a wrestler second. And speaking of family-focused stars with a much different vibe, let's head to Missouri, where the Viper has built a home just as intense as his in-ring character, minus the venom. Randy Orton lives in O'Fallon, Missouri, a quiet suburb about 30 minutes outside St. Louis, close to where he grew up. Orton bought the property back in 2016 for $1.5 million, and it spans just under 4 acres with roughly 7,400 feet of living space. The house leans into a rustic, grounded style rather than anything over the top. Inside, there's a media room, a billiards room, and an exercise room complete with sauna, useful for a guy who's been in the ring for over 2 decades. Outside, the property includes a pool, a fire pit for cool Missouri evenings, and a 5-car garage to house Orton's collection. The backyard also has verandas and patios built for hosting, along with a barbecue area that gets plenty of use during the warmer months. What stands out most about Orton's home isn't the size, it's the location. Rather than chasing the beaches of Florida or the hills of California, like so many of his peers, Orton stayed close to his roots in Missouri, but from the quiet streets of Missouri. Up next, we head to Florida's Gulf Coast, where a legend spent his final years living larger than life. Hulk Hogan's final home was a waterfront compound in Clearwater Beach, Florida. Put together in 2 stages, Hogan bought the main house in 2012 for $3.3 million, then expanded the property in 2016 by purchasing the house right next door for another $1.6 million. Combined, the compound was worth around $1.4 million. The main residence spans 5,400 square feet, with 5 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms built in a Mediterranean style that fit right in with the Florida coastline. Inside, there's a 2-way staircase with stained glass doors, a great room with soaring ceilings, and a gas fireplace overlooking a covered terrace with golf views. The kitchen is stocked with Sub-Zero and Wolf appliances. And for anyone who wanted to unwind after dinner, there's a 900-bottle wine cellar and a full home theater. Outside is where the property really earns its price tag. There's a resort-style infinity pool with dual spas, both indoor and outdoor kitchens, and a private dock offering direct access to the Gulf of Mexico. However, this wasn't Hogan's first rodeo when it came to jaw-dropping real estate. Before Clearwater, he owned a 17,000 QFT mansion in Bear that served as the backdrop for his reality show Hogan Knows Best, complete with a personal wrestling memorabilia museum. He also briefly owned an 18,000-foot Miami Beach mansion that he later sold to director Michael Bay for nearly $19 million. Hogan's homes tell the story of a man who lived big at every stage of his career. But in stark contrast to Hogan, our next legend prefers to keep things simple away from the cameras. Brock Lesnar is famously private, and his choice of home reflects that. Lesnar owns 2 properties, both far away from the noise of big cities. His main home sits in Minnesota, valued at around $800,000. Tucked away in a quiet wooded area, the house itself keeps things simple. There's a wood-themed interior, a spotless kitchen, and a hot tub out on the porch, perfect for unwinding after a hunting trip. His second property sits across the border in Merrifield, Saskatchewan, valued at roughly $2.1 million. This is where Lesnar actually spends most of his time with his family, far removed from arenas and cameras. Both properties give him easy access to hunting, fishing, and the kind of rural, self-sufficient lifestyle he's talked about loving in interviews. For a guy who's dominated both UFC and WWE at the highest level, Lesnar's homes prove he doesn't need a mansion to feel like a champion. Sometimes the biggest flex is simply not caring what anyone thinks. But from a man who avoids the spotlight, we head to Los Angeles, where another Paul Heyman guy built a home that matches his love of books, comics, and creativity. CM Punk made his return to wrestling in 2021, and shortly after he made a serious real estate move, too. Punk bought a Spanish revival home in the Luz's neighborhood of Los Angeles for $4 million. Built back in 1937, the home leans fully into that classic Spanish revival style. Stucco walls, tile roofing, and arched doorways throughout. It sits on a good-sized lot and spans just under 3,800 square feet, with 3 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. Inside, the home clearly reflects Punk's personality. There's a library with built-in bookshelves, perfect for a guy known for his love of reading and comic books. The living room has wood flooring and a fireplace, and the kitchen was fully renovated with marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. Outside, there's an in-ground pool surrounded by landscape gardens. Punk also still owns a home back in Chicago, his hometown, which he bought years earlier for just over $2 million. That property even includes its own tattoo